According to Wiper Party sources, the National Executive Committee is against the party leader's candidature due to shortfalls of numbers for an outright win. However, a clearer and final position will be reached after an Azimio meeting with outgoing President Uhuru Kenyatta. This gives Ford Kenya's elected Senator Moses Wetangula a clear head start to take the Speaker's seat. The ruling party UDA, its partners in the Kenya Kwanza and new members are also expected to meet with President William Ruto regarding tomorrow's agenda for legislators. As Murimi Mwangi now reports, a separate fight looms at the Senate between Ruto and his former presidential rival Raila Odinga as the coalition also battles for Speaker.
As President-elect William Ruto and his Deputy Rigathi Gachagua prepare for their August 13th swearing-in into office, the National Assembly and the Senate convenes for their first sittings on Thursday with a critical business of special interest to Ruto and incoming opposition leader Raila Odinga, the election of House Speakers and their respective deputies that has yet again put the Ruto-led Kenya Kwanza Alliance and Odinga's Azimio coalition on a warpath. But the stakes have gone a notch higher after Wiper leader Kalonzo Musyoka joined the race for National Assembly Speaker, hinting at a vicious duel against Ruto ally Ford Kenya leader Moses Wetangula, who is due to resign as Bungoma senator after filling in his application for the Speaker's job. Among notable applicants for Deputy Speaker's post is UDA-elected Geshogu legislator Robert Gishimo Githenji, set to go up against Wiper Deputy Party leader and the DAP MP-elect Farah Maalim. Legally, Azimio enjoys majority in the National Assembly with 164 members against Kenya Kwanza's 156. A recent wave of defections coupled with shift in allegiance by independents to Ruto's camp has, however, tilted the Azimio numbers politically to 159 against 161.
You're supposed to look at the country. You're supposed to do it impartially, non-partisan, and in the best interest of the country. And that's exactly what informed when I won in 2008, because then I had about 20 votes from the other side of PNU. You remember the one of Marende was too tight. The difference was just 1 vote. But in my case, it was in the first round over 20 votes.
Even though I am an independent member, I will be joining my colleagues of Kenya Kwanza in voting for Moses Wetangula, because that is the one we are identifying with.
Yet a separate Ruto-Odinga battle also looms at the Senate, where the president-elect enjoys the outright majority with 24 senators against Azimio's 22. Ruto has promised to hand the senatorship to the Coast region, with allies former Kilifi Governor Amason Kingi and former Mombasa Senator Hassan Omar already picking the nomination papers for the job. Kingi is bargaining for the job on account of his Pamoja African Alliance Party's delivery of 3 MPs to Ruto's fold, as well as 15 members of County Assembly in Kilifi. Omar, a UDA insider, on the other hand, has been leading Ruto's coast onslaught since 2017 and will be banking on his experience as a former senator and what insiders say is the goodwill of majority Kenya Kwanza senators to take up the critical post. The Kenya Kwanza candidate expected to face Kenneth Marende should the Azimio coalition resolve to withhold earlier plans to field Marende to the National Assembly against Wetangula.
We have captured almost 9 counties in the entire country, so we expect to have an equal representation in all sectors, both the committees and both the speaker and both the House leadership. So we expect to have a national outlook on how we give out our leadership, on how we give out the committees, and how we give everything that pertains to both houses, the Senate and the National Assembly.
I am confident that it is not the numbers that will count in the Senate, but the goodwill of the people or the goodwill of the person who is interested in contesting to that post.
Murimi Mwangi, KTN News.
Murimi Mwangi now joins us live from Parliament. Murimi, what are we learning at this hour?
Good morning, Trix. A lot happening in Parliament here. Remember, this is a very critical week for the 13th Parliament, for the National Assembly and the Senate. And specifically for the Senate today, there is an ongoing orientation process, especially for the new senators ahead of the first sitting tomorrow, when the members are going to be sworn in and will also be participating in the election of their speakers and deputy speakers. And specifically, if we can just begin from what's happening here, I would like to speak to the clerk of the Senate, Mr. Jeremiah Nyegenye. How critical is the process happening today? What really is this orientation all about?
Thank you, Wilson, and good morning to your viewers. Today we are very excited. We have laid out the red carpet, literally, to receive the representatives of the sovereign, to receive those that the people of this country have elected to represent them in the Senate. So what we are doing today is we are meeting them, we are receiving them, we are meeting and greeting. I have my colleagues and I are out here. We are here to receive them, to administratively register them for all the services and facilities that we provide, so that after the swearing in, they are good to go. We would not like to have any situation where after they have been sworn in, they are running about looking for this or the other administrative service. So we have created a one-stop shop to ensure that when they come in, all the administrative requirements are in place ahead of the swearing in, so that henceforth after that they are good to go. So more than the administrative introduction to services and facilities and the premises and how things work around here, we are also exposing them to the legislative and other services that we offer, and the officers who are on hand to enable them to access those services.
And one question in the minds of Kenyans is that business that your house will be undertaking tomorrow, of course, the swearing in and the election of the speaker and deputy speaker. And Kenyans are a bit curious about so far how many have put in or collected the papers or returned the applications for the job, and how do we go about that process tomorrow? Perhaps if you can just begin from the number of those that have picked the papers.
Okay, thank you very much. So at the last count, we had 17 individuals who had collected the nomination papers for the position of speaker, and we had 3 individuals who had collected the nomination papers for the position of deputy speaker. So it's very important to emphasize that what we are talking about and the numbers that I am giving are the numbers of those who have collected the nomination papers. This should not be misconstrued to be the number of candidates that will be on the ballot paper tomorrow. Under the standing orders, the individuals who collect these nomination papers need to find 2 senators who support their bid. So it could be a tall order for some of them, and it may very well be that less than half of those, I don't want to preempt, but it may very well be that less than half of the 17 may end up returning the nomination papers. Today at 3:30 p.m. we will have a press briefing at which we will inform the nation about how many have eventually returned the nomination papers, and out of those, how many do we find to be validly nominated for the position of speaker and deputy speaker. Thereafter, the process that we'll go through will be the preparation of the ballot papers ahead of tomorrow's election. Later this afternoon, we will also take the senators through a briefing about the process in the chamber and about that whole process of the election of speaker and deputy speaker.
Now, for Kenyans out there, this is going to be the 3rd Senate under the 2010 Constitution. From your perspective as clerk of that particular house, what really should we expect as the entry for the members once the sessions begin? What really should they expect from this 3rd Senate under the 2010 Constitution?
We are very conscious of our place as facilitators of the legislators to discharge their mandate. We are not in the business of setting the agenda. The agenda is determined by the new administration. The agenda will be determined by the political parties. However, from where we stand, we think that this Senate is going to oversee the consolidation of all the gains of devolution. You know that the Senate is a custodian of the counties, their interests, their governments. So we think that this Senate is going to oversee, being the third Senate, the maturation of the whole process of devolution and the consolidation of all the gains. But the specifics of the agenda of the Senate, that's the business of political parties. That's the business of the new administration.
Thank you so much, Mr. Jeremiah Nyegenye. He's the clerk of the Senate, speaking to us, of course, about the ongoing process here today, which is the orientation of senators ahead of that first sitting tomorrow. But to just bring you up to speed from what he said, 17 persons having picked the papers to apply for the Speaker's job in the Senate, 3 for Deputy Speaker, but of course, a better update this afternoon. But just look at what also is happening in the National Assembly. Applications still coming in, or persons still picking papers for the post of Speaker of the National Assembly and their deputies, and a lot of lobbying happening within political circles. I understand that the President-elect William Ruto-led Kenya Kwanza formation will today be holding a caucus of its parliamentary group, together with those that have joined or expressed affiliation to that coalition, including the independent members of parliament, as well as those from fringe parties that have expressed their support for the president-elect, to just chart their way forward ahead of that particular vote. Remember, they are fronting Ford Kenya leader and current Bungoma Senator-elect Moses Wetangula for the post of National Assembly Speaker. He is expected to formally vacate his place in the Senate to take up that particular assignment in the National Assembly. We understand that the team has also agreed on Gladys Bosholei to deputize him as Deputy Speaker of the National Assembly, that being the candidature from the Kenya Kwanza formation. On the Senate side, we understand that former Kilifi Governor Amason Kingi will be making a case for the speakership of the Senate, fronted by the Kenya Kwanza senators, or so we understand, ahead of that press briefing today, as well as Kathuri Murungi is the senator-elect for Meru, who could deputize Kingi if the resolutions of the Kenya Kwanza team ultimately sell through ahead of that particular vote. And a lot being watched closely here, particularly due to the emergence of critical names in the application of these top jobs in the National Assembly and the Senate, and particularly since the entry of Wiper leader Kalonzo Musyoka into the race for the National Assembly. We understand that the National Executive Committee of the Wiper Party, in a meeting yesterday, attempted to dissuade him from advancing his quest for the National Assembly speakership. We will be waiting to see if he will return the papers later today, when that deadline is set for that particular exercise.